Mrs. Kneifel,
Yes.
it shows that my camera's off, but it's not.
Okay. It's not a big deal, bud. I don't need to see your face right now.
Mine
All right. The recording. Sometimes when there's a ton of people, it'll your camera will come off and it'll come back on, but it's okay. As long as I just follow along. Okay. I can't see all of you at one time anyways because there's so many of you on. So just do the right thing. I am officially going to start. Our recording is started, so you should now be muted, and we should now be using only the chat for only academic things. So sorry if you missed how your day's going and you didn't get to say that. You'll have to say it later. I don't want to hear about Wolverine or pennies or whatever else. No more saying hi. We are officially starting academic stuff. We need to finish our story from yesterday. This is a long story, but what should we do first? Obviously, we should recap, okay? We need to go through what's happened so far, because like I said, this is a long story. And this is, once again, narrative nonfiction, which was your Google Classroom question yesterday. Narrative nonfiction gives factual information by telling a true story. For some reason, a lot of you said by telling a fictional story in your definition yesterday. So if you said that, I just put the actual answer. We're not telling anything fictional here. It's nonfiction, meaning it is a true story. Narrative just means it's in story form, but it's a true story. So if I commented a definition on your Google Classroom answer, that's because you didn't necessarily have the correct one. And if you didn't do yours, you need to get it done. So once again, this is in sequential order, meaning this happened, then this happened, then this happened. There's real photos in here, not illustrations. Make sure we're muted, people, because I'm hearing some background noise. And yeah, so remember, we started this story on, we need to be muted, friends. I'm definitely hearing some of us. Who's ever not muted, you need to be muted now, please. All right. So we started on May 28th. Remember, they found out Mount Pinatubo was not just a regular old mountain. They found out that, oh, snap, this is actually a volcano because it was spitting all this stuff, spitting this steam and stuff. But then, we're continuing on. The Volcano Disaster Assistance Program was made, and they then started having all these earthquakes from this volcano that's getting kind of ready to erupt. It ended up being June 8th happened, then June 9th happened, then June 10th happened. Remember, they're on the scientist and the is it the Navy? No, Air Base, Air Force. Sorry, Mrs. Kneifels. By the way, it's Happy Veterans Day, so if you know anyone that's a veteran and you happen to see them today, feel free to tell them that. Anyways, that is so off topic. Remember, all of the scientists had that huge dilemma on their brains and on their hearts. They were thinking, okay, do we say let's evacuate, which is going to cost a ton of money and take a ton of time? And we may not have a earthquake, or we may not have a volcano eruption at all, or do we not evacuate and then all these people die? So they had that huge decision to make. But remember, they ended up evacuating everyone. The people in the actual Philippines, remember, it was really hard on them to evacuate because they don't have the cars and buses and stuff. They had to go in their carts, taking only what they could. But the people on the air base did have their they did have cars and stuff, but it was still hard to evacuate. But they did it quick. But they had to just evacuate the whole base, and it was crazy. So I think that's pretty much where I want to stop. Let's I just want to start again at the top of 191. I know we read the first 2 paragraphs ish, but I'm just going to start at the top of 191. What's up, Mia?
Is it okay if when I rewatched the recording that I was just listening to it? I wasn't following along. I was just listening to you say the story.
That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever works. Okay, but tomorrow when we take our quiz, but that'll be after our live, make sure you can find this story on HMH because you're going to need it. But we're going to start on line 51. This is bad, Andy muttered. The pressure building under the pressure under the volcano was building. Should we evacuate? The scientists asked each other. The decision was quick. Someone yelled, "Evacuate the base!" Everyone started moving all From a big field, they watched the dark volcano. They waited. The volcanologists wanted to see their instruments. They wanted to find out what this volcano was up to so they could extend the evacuation zone if needed or learn something that would help at another crisis. But that would mean risking their own lives. They decided they had been too hasty evacuating themselves. They drove back to the observatory on the base along with the base commanders. So this is where we stopped reading yesterday. But once again, so these scientists, you know, the volcanologists, the people that are studying this volcano decided to evacuate because they're like, oh my gosh, like we don't want to die either. So they evacuate, they leave, and then they change their mind. And they're like, you know what? We left too soon. Let's go back. Okay, but this is risking their own lives because if this volcano does, erupt, guess what? They could get seriously harmed. So they're doing it anyways, okay? It was raining. Not just water and ash, but egg-sized chunks of pumice. Mrs. Kneifel, what the heck is pumice? Yeah, see that little 9 at the bottom? Okay, let's move our hands down. And I'm pointing at the screen. It's not a touch screen. Down here, it says pumice is light, glassy lava. So it's going to be like lava bubbles. Like imagine a bubble of like a bubble, like when you blow bubbles. So it's just going to be like glass-like bubbles of lava that, you know, were super hot and they were touched by the cold rain. And now they're like literally lava bubbles. It's just crazy. So it's not just raining rain. It's not just raining ash. It's also raining glass-like lava. Okay, so imagine walking in that. That seems a little bit crazy to Mrs. Kneifel. That's not where I want to go. The scientists hurried into the building and crowded around the seismographs. The earthquakes were so intense that the seismograph needles just banged from the top to the bottom of the drum. Thunk, 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 making alarming blocks of solid ink. Pina Tobit blasted ash higher and higher. The scientists watched aghast as monitoring stations blinked out one by one on the far side of the volcano, destroyed. Then the station went down on their side. Okay, so a seismograph, there was a picture of it somewhere. So it's this little graph. And like I said, we don't know how to read this because we're not volcanologists. We don't study earthquakes, but it's like this, okay? So it just measures things like this, okay? But the earthquakes are going like so intense that it's like just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's making these thick black marks. Like the graph like can't even read it because it's so intensely happening, okay? So even though they're watching this instrument work, it's like showing them just craziness. And the ash is getting higher and higher, and the monitoring stations blinked out one by one. That means the power's going out, okay? So all over the base, they're going out, and now the station went down on their side. So, like, now they're out of power. So they're stuck on this Air Force base with no power, and a volcano is about to erupt. Goodness. So, there is some dialogue in this story, and there's dialogue on page 191 and 190. Specifically 191, it says, this is bad. Should we evacuate? There's dialogue back and forth. Does anyone know what that, like, how does the dialogue impact the text? Would anyone, if you know, can you just put it in the chat? How does this dialogue impact the text? What does the dialogue do for the text? Think about the genre of the story. All right, so far those are 3 good answers. Yeah, it's showing how intense the situation is, but I'm thinking of not exactly, I guess I probably didn't really word the question exactly how I wanted. It's showing they're expressing, it's showing how they're feeling and stuff like that, and it's adding to the story, but what it's doing is making this more like a narrative. By having that dialogue, it's making it more story-like. Okay, because remember, this is a narrative nonfiction. So it is a nonfiction, but it's in story form, like a narrative. So the dialogue just helps it sound more like a story. And of course, it shows how intense this is. It's showing us, you know, how the characters are actually feeling. Because remember, these are real people, or were. I don't know if they're still alive, obviously, but these are real people. So it's cool that we can actually see like what they're saying in these situations. And also, like you guys already said, it just builds excitement. It builds intense when we're hearing these people like yelling, evacuate, you know, it's just helping us. It's building the suspense for sure. All right, I'm going to, oh wait, let's look at that picture on the bottom. It says, threatened by Mount Pinatubo, Clark Air Base was evacuated on June 10th. The light-colored peak in the center is the summit of Mount Pinatubo. So right here is like, this would be where the summit or like the top of the volcano would be here, the light-colored peak. And then this is the Air Force Base that's just looking empty, okay? And remember, these are real, whatchamacallit? Why can't I think right now? Those are, yeah, let's make sure we're being focused. Those are pictures. Thank you, Landon. I'm sorry. Yeah, those are photographs. Remember, these are actual photographs taken. All right, next picture. So we're out of power. Oh my goodness, craziness. So right here, I just want you to look at this picture and just think, could you imagine actually seeing this in person? This smoke, this ash, this is nuts. So it says on June 12, 1991, eruption of Mount Pinatubo viewed from Clark Air Base. So someone took this picture from the air base, okay? And like this was the photo they got. Look at how high that is. I mean, you can see how low this house is. Houses are obviously quite a few feet into the air, you know, probably like, I don't know, how tall is a house? Like 12 feet at least, I would think. And then look, it just keeps on going and going and going. All right. Line 61. It was only 12 miles from where they were standing. Was a Syrian pyroclastic flow heading their way? So where they're at on the Air Force Base, they're saying they're 12 miles from the volcano. 12 miles really isn't that far. 12 miles is like the school to Myers in Michigan City, probably. So if you know where Myers is in Michigan City, it's like, you know, it's probably about 12 miles. So they're wondering, okay, is all this lava heading our way? Flows moved up to 100 miles an hour. Did the scientists have only precious moments before they fell victim to an eruption raging Syrian pyroclastic flows? So the mountain is overflowing with lava. Yeah, 12 miles is, I mean, yeah, obviously it would take a while to walk there, 12 miles, but if the flow of lava is moving 100 miles an hour, let's see how long it would take the lava to get 12 miles. So that would take, no, it would take way more than that, I think. Take 12 minutes. So, let's do, maybe you are right, Mark. 100 miles divided by 12. Yeah, it'd be about 8 minutes. I lied. So yeah, you're right, Mark. It would take between 7 or 8 minutes for it to get there, okay? So that's not that much time to hop in your truck and leave away, okay? So the lava is flowing 100 miles an hour. Every second is like precious time. This time, the scientists knew they had no time to evacuate. They raced for the back of the building, the farthest they could get from the erupting monster. They waited, panting, sweating. Okay, is there a monster in this story? No, there's not a monster. So who's the monster? What is this erupting monster? What are they talking about? The volcano. Yeah, they're calling the volcano a monster. It's just so crazy. So they ran as far away from so they're in a building. That's good for them. At least they're in a building. And they went to the farthest corner of the building that's away from the volcano. So they're as far away in a building as they can be. Andy could stand it no longer. He went back to the front door. All he saw was black, complete black. From the rain, the dark clouds, the ash fell. The sound was terrifying, like a wall of rock a mile high racing down at breakneck speeds. I could die, Andy thought. All my friends could die. He watched and watched. What, Ava? Ava, make sure your volume's on. Okay, Mark, yes, I said about 8 minutes. Thank you.
Miss Kneifel? Yes? You're like glitching out.
I'm sorry, you might have to watch the recording. It's probably glitching because there's 50 some of us on. Okay? So that would be a
Alright.
good reason to actually have your book open and be following along as I'm reading in case I am glitching, okay? So I could die, Andy thought. All my friends could die. He watched and watched, his eyes glued to the row of lights on the airstrip that pointed towards the volcano. I figured that as long as I could.
I can't hear
Yes,
you.
Ava. What? Ava, you might need to watch the recording if your Wi-Fi is not super strong right now. Because other people are hearing me, okay? And if you need to say that you can't hear me, can we put it in the chat, okay? Because it's hard getting interrupted. We're getting nowhere. Okay, anyways, I figured that as long as I could see the lights, the pyroclastic flow hadn't reached us. If the lights went out, I had about 20 seconds to run to the back of the building. Maybe that would be enough protection. Then the air and sky seemed to lighten just a shade. The pyroclastic flow hadn't reached the base. Andy and his friends checked the instruments. Everything was flatlining. All the monitor stations had been destroyed except for one, a station on the base. Okay, so let's summarize Andy's feelings. Marissa, I'm sorry if you cannot hear me. Other people are able to hear me. You may have to watch the recording. It may be your Wi-Fi. I'm talking loud. My volume is up as high as it will go. If you're not hearing me, try logging out, try logging back in. Get closer to your Wi-Fi router, or you may have to watch the recording. I'm not sure why you can't hear me. Other people are hearing me just fine, okay? Also, the letter I should be capitalized. So let's summarize Andy's feelings when he realizes that there's no time to evacuate. So he feels super nervous. He's really worried because he's not only thinking, I could die. He's also thinking, oh my gosh, all my friends, with me could also die. So he knows he only has about 20 seconds to move once the lights go out. But then all of a sudden, the sky gets a little bit brighter, like a shade light. I shouldn't say bright, but instead of like pitch black, maybe it's like a dark gray. Okay, so it's just a little bit dark gray. And then all of a sudden, like, things just kind of stop. The instruments flatline. That means that the instruments like stopped moving crazy. They just kind of stopped. Everything had been destroyed except for like the building station they were in. Well, I mean, the station, the monitoring all the monitoring stations had been destroyed except for the one they were at. But the actual Air Force base hadn't been reached, so the lava didn't get to them. Thank goodness. So he did not die. Hallelujah, okay? So he did not die. His friends didn't die. But basically, all the monitoring stations, the instruments would be the seismographs, the things that measure the earthquakes and the volcano and stuff. They're called instruments, like tools. Tools would be another word for them. So, all the monitoring stations have been destroyed except for the one they were at the base. So, the volcanologists quickly grabbed what they could, piled into trucks, and tore off. That is, until they merged the hordes of evacuating Filipinos. It was a huge, slow-moving traffic jam with everybody with water buffalo strolling out of town, Andy says. We were all going crazy with the delay, but at least we were headed away from the volcano. But Andy and the other volcanologists and the villagers managed to escape with their lives. The eruption of Mount Pinatubo was the second largest eruption in the 20th century. A few hundred people died, most in buildings that later collapsed under the weight of rain-soaked ash, but more than 20,000 lives were saved. We got it right, Andy said. We questioned ourselves and doubted ourselves as things unfolded, but we got it right. Okay, so yeah, that you said that looks like snow, Evan, but what it is it's ash. Ash can sometimes be that gray, white, things that burn. It says ash-covered news box on Clark Air Base tells the story of the headline, and it says Mount Pinatubo showers Clark. So they're saying showers it with ash, but it's not snow, it's ash, but it kind of does look like snow. So Andy's saying we got it right. Okay, what do we mean? What did he get right? Remember, the entire thing, the entire big problem in this narrative was the scientists, the people of the VDAP were wondering, do we evacuate everyone? Yeah, they did predict the eruption was going to happen, but the main problem was, do we evacuate people and do we spend this money to get people out? Or do we not spend the money and people may die? So sadly, a few hundred people did die, okay? But 20,000 people were saved. So they're saying we got it right, meaning they did the right things or thing. They decided to evacuate people, and that was the right thing to do. Some people did pass away, which is, of course, terrible, but less people passed away because they said evacuate. So 20,000 lives were saved. And it even says here that most of the people that died didn't necessarily die from the volcano itself, like, being swept up in lava, but because in the Philippines, it's not the most developed country. So their houses aren't made like our houses. Their houses are more like shacks. They're not super sturdy. So all the ash and stuff that was falling on their building actually caused them to collapse. And that's how a lot of people passed away, because the weight of the building. So, but they're saying they got it right, which is so fantastic that so many people were saved. And of course, it is sad that some people passed away, but it was the second worst of the 20th century. So out of a whole century, a century is 100 years. So a whole century, it was the second worst. That's pretty bad. Paisley, do you have a question?
Or can they die from sucking in the volcano smoke?
I'm sure that if they were leaving and they were it'd probably be a lot like a fire. You can breathe in too much smoke in a fire and pass away. I'm sure it could be like that. What was the worst one of the 20th century? Let's look it up. Worst volcano eruption of 20th century. Let's look it up real quick.
Mount St. Helens.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's. Let's just double check. This says the Norvacua Kamari eruption of 1912. So
Is the story over?
Yeah, but I'm not done, so don't get off. It's whatever you said, Paisley. It's the Nora Rupta. It was from Alaska. So that's all besides the point. Okay, that's off topic. So let's just talk a little bit more about this. So obviously, throughout the book, you just make small predictions. And of course, I was thinking, oh snap, I did believe these scientists, yeah, this was going to go off, everyone's going to die is what I was thinking. But luckily, people didn't die as much as I thought, because the evacuation, a lot of people were able to live, which is, of course, fantastic. So we already talked a little bit why the author decides to include and the author includes that to make it seem more like a narrative. And of course, it adds a lot of suspense. It adds some drama to the story, hearing what people are actually saying, hearing what people are actually feeling. That really adds to it. So I want everyone to, let's go back here. You don't have to go anywhere. I'll go here. So do we all remember this red box? That was called Looking for Lumps. And that was what? Put it in the chat if you remember what that's called. Yes, correct. Sidebar, side note, whatever you want to call it. Mrs. Kneifel calls it a sidebar, but basically all those mean the exact same thing. So let's just review what this was again. So this is separate from the main text. And we can tell that because it's red and it's in its own box, right? Everyone nod your head. Does everyone see? That's off. It's not just a text box. It's a side note. It is put off to the side. I don't know why I'm using so many hand motions, but we can see that it's separate. And this sidebar in particular explains how scientists measure the lumps or the big domes on volcanoes. And this information is separate from the main text because it's not necessarily about Mount Pinatubo. They're just telling us extra information about how volcano domes are measured for us. So the author included this to just give us more information to know more about how to measure volcanoes things. This is not specifically about Mount Pinatubo. We could apply looking for lumps at any volcano. So this was added for extra information, not specific to the story, which is why it is set off from the rest of the story. Nod your head if we understand that. Do we understand why it is off to the side? And we have already talked quite a bit about why it was so hard to decide if they wanted to evacuate or not. It gives us information, side information, not direct to the story landed. So it was so hard to make this evacuation decision because, do we spend a lot of money for no reason, or do we do nothing and people die? That's a big decision. Sadly, as you'll find out as you become an adult, money rules life. And a lot of decisions are made around money a lot of the time, which kind of stinks. You're like, well, of course we're going to spend the money to save people's lives. But sometimes things, crazy things happen. But obviously, we are all super happy that they did decide to evacuate. They got it right, just like Andy said, that they did the right thing. That way, people didn't die. Well, not as many people died. Okay. What was I gonna do? Okay, hold on. Then I moved to the page I was gonna move to. Okay. So I feel like this author does uses a lot of imagery. Okay, so let's just engaging. So imagery uses sensory words to convey how something looks, tastes, feels, sounds, or smells, and it helps us just feel how we are in the story. So there's a lot of sensory details that the author uses, and there's a lot on this page in general. So if we think like Andy woke up to a blue sky morning on July 12th. So we all know what blue is. We know what a blue sky looks like. That can help us, a blue sky. That's some imagery details right there. The author definitely just uses in a lot of adjectives, incredibly relieved. We all know what the feeling of relief is. That helps us there. The ash column, had hit the stratosphere. The cloud mushroomed out, reaching the sky right above them. So we can all, we know what a mushroom is. I drew that little thing for you yesterday. We can all imagine that just going further and further out. So the author really just does a good job with some imagery, showing us some good just help.
Miss
Yes.
Kiki, about the mushroom, is it like a lava mushroom or is
That
it
was
like
smoke.
part of the
That
volcano?
would be like the smoke coming out. So where's my marker? So that is how the smoke comes out. Yeah, it's like a mushroom cloud. So here's my volcano, okay? Lovely volcano. And when the smoke comes out, it kind of mushrooms out, okay? That's just how it happens, okay? Whoosh. Just kind of how it looks. But they are comparing it to like a mushroom because we know, Logan, that doesn't have anything else. That doesn't have anything to do with what we are doing right now, Logan. But we know what a mushroom looks like. So it mushroomed out. I'm trying to think what else there was. There was something else I was going to show you. Well, even just paragraph 29, it says, the Filipinos extended their evacuation 12 miles, displacing 25,000 people. People with carts piled high with furniture and leading water buffalo shared the road with a long line of military trucks and cars, people evacuating the base. So just think about that. 25,000 people got to go somewhere, okay? And there's such a difference here. Imagine, here's a road filled with these water buffalo right here, okay? A road filled with buffalo. And then on the other side of the road, there's going to be cars and trucks. Like, that's just like, those two things don't really match up in our brains, So it is just like, oh my gosh, here we are. Just imagine people in this, kind of like a third world country where it's not as developed on buffalo, and then the other people trying to get to the same place are in the cars. So that's just, the author does a really good job there. So once again, this is done sequentially. Everyone remember that, sequentially, meaning it tells us in chronological order. It started on May 28th, and by the end of the story, we were on, what page were we on? Or what day, not page?
12th of June.
The 12th of June. Okay. Oh, yeah, because that's the day it erupted. So the 12th of June is the day it erupted. So that's like less than 20 days in between. And then we can assume this page right here, the newspaper would have to probably be the day after. So we can assume this newspaper is probably from June 13th, June 14th, around those days.
There is a 15-day difference.
Yeah, just amazing how much the difference is. So remember we talked about content area words? Does anyone remember what a content area word is? We kind of skimmed on them a little bit. Anyone remember what a content area word is? If you remember, type it in my chat. What is a content area word? Content area word. Yeah, if you don't know, don't type it in the chat. Just wait for someone else that does. Content area word. Okay, well, let me help you. Content area words are used in texts that are specific to a subject. Remember, a content area would be like math, science, social studies. So in this story specifically, there's a lot of words that kind of go along with different content areas. And we may not always know what those words mean, but we can kind of guess what they go with. So it's kind of some of these with these little, do we remember the all the little footnotes throughout the story, how they had those numbers? Those would be some of our really good content area words. So remember, the first one was dormancy. Did we know what that word meant? No, not really, but it wasn't one of our vocab words. That would be a content area word. So it had that footnote for us. And dormancy, the period in which a volcano is temporary inactive. So that would be a content area word. It goes specifically with science. And then we had groundwater, which was our second footnote, which goes once again specifically with science, found underground in the cracks of sand, soil, and rock. Number 3 would be the Aida tribe. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that tribe. And that would not be science forward. What would that be? If we're talking about a tribe of people, what content area would that be? Science, social studies, or math? If we're talking about a tribe of people, what would that be specific to? Science, social studies, or math? Yes, I already have some answers. So words for science and for social studies. Then the conduit would be a channel moving some type of liquid. That would be science. Volcanologist, that would be science as well. So those are examples of content area content area words. And obviously in all texts, there aren't these little footnotes, right? We just don't have those. So sometimes when we don't know a word, we have to use our context clues, and we know what context clues are. We read the words around them to see if we can figure it out. Were there any other?
Mrs. Knivel.
Yes.
So basically, a content area word is like a word that goes along with the story specifically.
It goes along with another subject specifically. So all of our stories are, reading stories. They're all literature. Regardless of their genre, they're all going to be literature. But a content area word isn't just strictly a reading word. Instead, it's also a science word. It's a social studies word. It's a math word. They go specifically along with another subject, okay? So on this page, we have the pyroclastic flow. Okay, that is definitely not a word we just hear in everyday literature. That is a science content word because it's talking about fast-moving flows of hot gas and rock, which would be lava, basically. So that is a super definite science content area word. So we're reading it in literature. So it's a reading word because we're reading it, but it goes along specifically with science, which is why it's content area specific. Were there any other good? Oh, a shanty town. This shanty town is not necessarily science. Like, we don't know what a shanty town is. If you were in I did a text-to-text connection yesterday. If you're in my reading RTI, because the Hooverville was the shanty town. So shanty town wouldn't be a science-specific word. That would be more like a social studies specific word, okay? Because it was a settlement outside of towns that consists of large numbers of rundown dwellings, which just means houses. So that would be a social studies specific word. So nod your head if you're understanding how these content area words are not just literature words. They go along with another subject. I don't think there's any math ones in here. The typhoon, that would be another science one. Pumice, another science one, okay? So we had science and we had social studies content area words in here. On top of our, on top of our vocab, sorry. On top of our vocab, we still had that. Okay, so you are going to have a mini assignment today, and it's going to be on Google Classroom, okay? You are going to choose, you're going to have to think of adjectives. Can someone remind me what an adjective is?
A descriptive word.
Right, an adjective is a descriptive word like scary, suspenseful, big, bad, blah, 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 blah. Of at least descriptive. Sorry, I'm finishing our assignments. Oh, wait, I should write adjectives. N-A-D. Eruptions. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to think of at least 3 adjectives to describe the story, eruptions, and the science of saving lives. So you are going to write one sentence saying, I would describe the story, eruptions, and the science of saving lives as blank, blank, and blank, okay? So you just, this is your own personal feeling. How did you feel about this story? You know, did you think it was scary? Did you think it was powerful? Did you think it was boring? I don't know how you felt about this story, but you're going to tell me. So you just have to type me one sentence with your 3 adjectives. It's not totally posted yet, as I'm going to finish typing it as you guys log off. If you don't know adjectives, Google some adjectives. Look through the story again. But this will be your assignment, which is due before reading class tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to have another live, of course. So in 0.1 second, I'm going to finish posting this assignment. So think of at least 3 adjectives to describe the story, eruptions, and the science of saving lives. So your actual, stressful. If you want to describe it as stressful, put that down. So please write one sentence with 3 adjectives describing the story, eruptions, and the science of saving lives.
Can we do it on a Google Doc?
I'm going to post it in 1 second. It's going to be a question like I always do because I like questions. You need to have a capital letter and punctuation. And capital letter and punctuation. I just spelled punctuation wrong. And it is due before class tomorrow. Please do your personal best. Remember, 3 adjectives, not 2 adjectives, not 1 adjective, 3 adjectives, okay? If there's no questions, you can sign off, and this will be posted in just about 1 second. And remember, it should be, I would describe the story, eruptions and the science of saving lives as blank, okay? So you may leave me. This will be posted in it is due tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. See you later, guys.